everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Dance Talk Realness, a podcast where we discuss all nuances concerning education and dance, because a dance experience is an experience worth talking about. I'm your host, Truly B. I'm here with my awesome, as always, co-host, Daryl P. Hey. And today we are joined by our special guest, one of my favorite people in the world that it feels like I've known for forever, even though it's only been 6 years, but 6 years is forever at this point. So we're going to count it. Mr. Stephen Vaughn. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. This is really exciting.
I don't know what took me so long to have you come on. I don't know. I think it's because I just keep trying to get my life together. And I'm like, okay, once it's together, then I'll invite people. And I'm like, just invite the people. That'll help you get your life together.
Yeah. All of a sudden there's that moment where it's like, all right, if I really wait until I feel good about something, I don't think it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, I guess let's just start at the beginning. I've heard some of your background and life story that kind of got you into dance, and kind of led you down the career path that you've gone down and kind of gotten you to where you are today. But my audience has not. My co-host has not. And just a little bit of background. The reason why I know Steve is because we both graduated from Hollins together. We were in the same cohort. And so got to spend 3 lovely summers getting to know him. And we actually had an assignment where we essentially introduced ourselves. We had to interview is what happened. And so that's how a lot of us learned about each other, is that we really just had the opportunity to open up and discuss. So I know some of it, but I want you to start as far back as you can and just take us on the journey that made you who you are today.
It was a chilly March morning in Iowa City when it all started. Actually, it really was. I was born in March in Iowa. And I grew up moving around the country. My dad was in retail jewelry sales. And so he would be transferred from one place to another. So we would get our things and go with him. And it was really exciting. Every couple of years, we'd be in a new place and also a new dance studio. And dance was the thing that my brother and I both kind of did, that we actually did, that felt like the stability in our lives, because we were moving around so often that we were comfortable knowing that soon this was going to come to an end and the new thing would start. And dance was the thing where we would go and we'd meet people, and kind of immediately you'd be like, okay, I kind of understand something about you because you do this dance thing that I also do. Great, let's start there. And so wherever we went, we would find a dance studio, and then an apartment, and then sign up for school. And so that continued until my family settled down in Massachusetts when I was like 11 or 12. So going into 6th grade, they said anytime they always had said when my brother was going into high school, they would stop moving. So that happened when I was going into 6th grade. I was also joining the jazz band, and Truly and I talked about this too. We landed in Mattapoisett, Massachusetts, because there was a really great jazz band here. This is where my dad ended up finding his 6-month housing while he was just waiting for us to make the move from Ohio to Massachusetts. And we found out about the elementary school jazz band, and it's just off the charts. And so we're like, well, let's go to there. Both my parents are musicians, I should also add. And my dad particularly found his affinity playing jazz, saxophone, alto, and tenor. So I grew up listening to that and then going to dance school. So in retrospect and in hindsight, and even as I'm saying it out loud, I'm realizing that probably very directly led to my individuality and interpretation of what music looks like, probably leading me into modern dance, because sticking to a strict 4/4 time was getting a little restrictive. So we did competitions the whole time growing up. I started when I was 4 or 5 years old, competing, wiggling around on the stage like you do when you're 5. And I had a really good experience with competition. And when we moved to Massachusetts, I was able to find some camaraderie with other boys who danced, which was actually kind of the first time that my brother and I had met other guys who were in the dance world. We were like, oh, this is cool. So actually some of those people we're still really close with. Actually, right before COVID, I was living with my friend Kyle, who we met when we were 11 at a dance competition. We were both in our tights. We were going in for our ballet section of the scholarship competition. He's like, "Hey, I'm Kyle." I'm like, "Hey, I'm Steve." Our dads, meanwhile, were upstairs because both of our dads had driven us, and they're like, "Hey, I'm John. Hey, I'm Mel." And now, still today, we all still hang out. My parents are still very close with their parents, and that was like the start of my dance competition experience in Massachusetts. Continued until I was 18, and then I went to University of the Arts in Philadelphia to earn my Bachelor of Fine Arts in Modern Dance with an emphasis in choreography under director Susan Glazier. And then upon graduation, actually the year before graduation, I got an apprenticeship with Parsons Dance under David Parsons and started rehearsing with that company. And then actually did the Joy season my senior year. So it worked out that the Parsons Joy season was during our winter break. Yes, perfect. That was lucky. That was lucky. So I was able to do some of the shows with the company then. And then I continued, after I finished school, I moved to New York and danced with Parsons until 2014, when I moved back to Philadelphia to pursue teaching, choreographing, something else, something more, and found myself applying at Hollins. And I was like, all right, this is the only school I'm going to apply to. I'd always kind of considered going to grad school. I didn't think it was going to happen so quickly. But I was like, so I'll apply to Hollins on the referral from a friend of mine who said I should check it out. So I'll apply to Hollins, and if I get in, I'll go. If not, I'll wait and I'll reapply to there and maybe look some other places too. I got in on the 3-year track, which was perfect for me. Or 3-summer track. three summers, 17 years, right? That's how it worked out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And that's where I met Truly. And a couple other great people too.
Oh my God, so many.
Like some other really awesome people. So while I was at Hollins, I was also teaching at Georgian Court University. I was an adjunct professor there, which was really cool to be able to go and study at Hollins and then go apply it immediately during the school year. Also added for its own source of stress to be away from campus without anybody else to be like, yeah, I'm freaking out too. It's like, oh, okay. If I'd known that, I would have been calmer. And then after I graduated from Hollins, I was promoted to a full-time position at Georgian Court. Once that position ended, I decided to move back to New York. I got my Pilates certification for full comprehensive Pilates certification. And I started working in a physical therapy office, training exercises for patients, which was super cool. And then pandemia hit, and I came back to Massachusetts with my girlfriend. I said, "Do you want to go to Massachusetts for the weekend while this blows over?" And
yes, blows over.
Yeah.
And while we still continue to wait for that to happen, we ended up finding a studio space pretty close to where I grew up, and we've opened our own Pilates, yoga, and dance studio. So we're kicking off our dance program this summer, and we've been doing yoga and Pilates now for a couple of months. It's really opened up since June, when some of the restrictions were lifted and people felt comfortable coming out. And in the fall, I actually had the privilege and honor of teaching at Hollins for the semester. The whole
Did
thing,
you?
Yeah, the whole thing was remote, so it was really wild. But I taught 3 courses as the visiting guest artist. It was so cool, and I was on the phone very often with Mindy, asking a lot of advice and a lot of thumbs up. Yeah, that's okay. And it was really cool. It was really awesome to be again under the tutelage of Jeffrey Bullock, in a completely different way too, and to see how genuine of a person he is and how much his leadership really carries through to what you're going to be doing in real life.
Yes.
The things that we discussed, and even a couple of private conversations between me and Jeffrey, really keep showing up and keep supporting. So to be back under his guidance is very cool.
Oh my gosh. I actually I was supposed to talk to Mindy recently. I need to call her back. There's just something about the connection that all of us have now that have gone through that program, that I think I don't know how Jeffrey made these decisions, but I am so glad that he did. Like beyond that, because I remember getting there in 2015 and I'm like, okay, these people are like fancy, fancy. Like, what am I doing over here with all of you? I'm like, I am confused. Like world traveled, people at universities, own companies, and I'm like,
People
so
like
I'm teaching at
studying
high school.
advanced history. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, so that's what you look like in real life. I only recognize you from pages in books.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was mind boggling to sit and see some that I'm like, you're in the book I use with my students. You're a real
Do you
person.
mind signing it, please?
Yes, right. I was like, just
Like, okay,
sign this
cool.
page. Just sign right there. Like insane. And I'm like, okay, so I teach high school. It's fun. What? I was like, how am I here? And Jeffrey, like in our conversations, him talking me through that of
Okay.
because you're supposed to be. Like, and I was, it took me so long to really listen to him. Like I heard it. Um, I always heard it from y'all in the cohort, but to really listen and to know that that's someone that's in my corner to this day. And to be able to see us be able to go back into that space. And like you said, to have another angle of that relationship is so crazy. I keep saying one day I'm going to like volunteer to guest teach, but I also just need to stop being in school all the time.
I was gonna say, when we at graduation, I stayed overnight and hung out. I actually hung out by myself on campus. I brought my kick scooter, I had my little Razor scooter, and I rode down that hill behind the library 2 times. And that's a treat. That's the way to see Hollins. Nothing on your mind, no chapters to read that night.
Oh my gosh.
Just
Yes.
the wind, the mountains, that huge library, the theater at a distance.
That library is gorgeous.
Unreal.
And
Unreal.
I would love actually because I think I was able to take one leisurely stroll and it was around graduation. And I was like, oh, it's actually gorgeous out here. We were just hella stressed. It's like we were under a lot of pressure every time we were on the campus. And I'm like,
imagine if we weren't inside like the hug of beautiful mountains.
like gorgeous. Now, also to be fair, thunderstorms there, terrifying.
But don't worry,
Because
we'll be done in a second.
it was like, oh, we're like in a valley and the sound of thunder was amplified.
And then
And I was like, we're gonna die.
it came back again. It would like thunder, and then it would bounce back.
Yes. I was like, just in case you missed the first time, run it back. Terrifying. Oh my gosh.
So good. That's what I remember the most is that it smelled so good. After it would like come in just like torrential rain, that big thunder, that big like adjust your root chakra sound, and then it would just like smell good.
Mm-hmm. It was a literal cleansing.
Yeah, yeah. Until you realize that you have to finish that paper for Elizabeth.
Yes. That part, because
and
that
like, oh wait, it wasn't thunder at all. She was reading my paper out loud.
it was, oh man, like no, that was pure chaos. Daryl is also in school. I don't know that we talk about that enough, sir. We don't pump that enough.
Yeah.
No, not at Hollins, but
okay.
No. I'm doing online with Walden, a ed doc.
Okay.
It is kicking my butt currently. Just with life and right, like that's really what it is, right? Like just having to balance everything with that is like why do we sign up for that? Like, why did like no one forced me to do it. I said, I filled out the paperwork. Like I chose to do this.
And with all that paperwork, you have ample opportunity to realize, you know what?
I don't think I want to
This isn't even a start. I haven't even gotten to what's your email to get the syllabus.
Right.
I'm reading
Right. Yeah.
Like, yeah, I think that was also part of the beauty of our time at Hollins, is that it was almost as though life was cut off.
Mm-hmm.
The downside, though, is when we had to go back home. And it was like, oh, but life kept happening. I thought y'all were on pause too. No?
Yeah, I thought everybody else like paused, came to some understandings about things they hadn't previously understood,
Mm-hmm.
and then like returned in August.
Yes.
But I got back to Philadelphia and everybody was still like my neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yes.
oh,
Yeah.
I had a different experience. Okay.
That part.
Yeah.
How do I now actually negotiate? And that's what I really honestly believe was like the most intense class I took in college. Because like if I fell over some words or I used like, if I didn't articulate myself well, I was surrounded by people who would help me get there.
Mm-hmm.
But then, but inside of real life, inside of like, yeah, life, it was like, wait, okay, how do I apply what I now know or what I'm now thinking to what? Oh wait, hold on. How do I have this conversation? How do I have this thought?
Yeah.
And then it became June 1st, and I was like, oh, it's so good to see you all. We have 2 days of presentation where I can just chill out. We can have those snacks over there. We can listen to Jeffrey go, Steven? And then we'll start.
I tell you, every time I use the word multiplicity, I'm like, Jeffrey. That was my takeaway, of which that is all up and through my dissertation right now.
Multiplicity?
Yes. I was like, full circle, and we're back.
Seriously.
So like, we're now back to this. But yeah, that feeling of being back, because it was always, for me, it was chaos leaving to come back, because it was always the end of the school year and school wasn't out. And I remember our first summer, I remember Maya had an issue with that. And I will say she didn't finish our first one. I think she finished our second one. I think she finished our second summer. Yeah. And so I remember it happening again. And I was like, yeah, no, this is real. I was like, we actually have an issue just trying to get here. And so to get there and be like, oh, I'm back with people who get it. They understand. It's so beautiful.
And not just like what we've gone through, but also where we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
And to like be like, see? And it's like, yeah, I see it too.
Yes.
Yeah, let's go over to there.
Yes. I was like, let's go. Like, yeah,
But yeah, it is like I was saying, like to do school and like to have life and like to have bills and stress and insecurity and be happy. You know, to have all that same insecurity and you're like, wow, it's a pretty day. Like that's hard. And then to have all that and a thesis.
Yes.
I feel like I've seen more and more photos, and maybe I'm just like more aware of it now that I'm past grad school. Not past grad school, but since I'm no longer attending grad school, I was going to say maybe not currently attending, but I don't think it's happening again. Since I'm no
you
longer
sure you don't want to do this again? No.
It's a pleasure to be on your podcast. It is a pleasure to be here and talk with you. But to kind of feel all these things and then see all these people, and that's what I mean. Maybe I'm just more aware of it now because of where I'm at in a few years past school. But to see people like even some the people who I took class with at school, I don't know, Roderick George, who's taught one of my favorite classes. He had a post the other day that was just like, grad school is kicking my butt. I'm like, yeah, it kicked mine too. Yeah, it really did.
Past tense.
That really was hard. That really was hard.
Like, and it
Wow.
was.
But like
I
to
loved his
see
class.
that, oh my God, I loved it. But to see that people have a hard time with school, it was nice. I mean, you know what I mean? Not like a sense of like schadenfreude. Like I don't take pleasure in seeing people struggling through school, but also at the same time, it's like, wow, yeah, this is something that you move through, that you experience, that you earn. It's very special.
It is.
So I mean, maybe that's just a long-winded way of saying that I really admire you doing your PhD. It's
Yeah, every time I'm just like, whew. I tell people often, I was like, y'all do know an MFA is terminal for dance, right? Like, I could have been done, but
yeah.
I chose this life again for some unknown reason. But now we're here.
Sorry, y'all.
It's like
we had some
technical difficulties.
Yes.
You're fine. You're fine.
Okay, good.
Yeah, but I will say that experience through Hollins has helped carry me a lot of the way through the PhD process. A lot of it is just that idea of, okay, but you've done this. Mm-hmm. Like you have survived doing a process like this. Like, yes, you're writing about something a little different now. There's a different focus. There is a different level of work that is being asked of you this time. But still, you've made it through a process. You can make it through this one too. Mm-hmm. Like, and the people who were in your circle for the master's process, they're still in your circle. Like you still have them. You can still call them. You can still talk to them.
Those of us who aren't pursuing a PhD have a little bit more energy too to go Truly, you can do it. You can do this. Keep it up. You got this.
Like the people who are not thoroughly drained because they were smart enough to take this break and take this terminal degree have been the best cheerleaders.
Yeah, let me get that tenure first, and then we'll see about pursuing the next one.
Like, because that's a whole other situation. Yeah. That shouldn't be as complicated as it is, but it is definitely complicated. 100%.
I've moved on to just Pilates. Like, get on this reformer. Now push. And come back in. Now push again. Now do it 10 more times.
But, and speaking of, question, I've had this question since you started posting about opening the studio. What led you to Pilates?
Okay. So, while I was performing, like professionally, I ended up finally, after resisting enough, I downloaded a couple of videos from YouTube, or not YouTube, Apple TV, whatever it is. I downloaded a couple of videos that actually I still use. I downloaded a 30-minute Pilates and a couple different like 30-minute yogas. Like there's some 15 minutes, some are like 22 minutes, but like some half an hour thing. And one day I felt like doing it finally. And I did yoga and then Pilates and then yoga again. And I had never felt better. I had never felt better. And I ran into my roommate's bedroom. I knocked on the door. I'm like, Miguel, I feel like an oak tree made out of linen. And he looked at me, he goes, very good friends. And he's like, well, you just did a lot of yoga and Pilates. Like I can imagine that that's a sensation you might have. And so that's when I started doing it all the time. So that actually became my warm up. So even for a dance performance, I was doing yoga and Pilates to warm up for it. As I left performing and got more into teaching, I started eventually developing my own sequence. That's what I call it, a sequence. of calibrating the body. So tightening up other muscles, loosening up other muscles, basically building strength and flexibility at the same time, trying to find the most efficient way of doing it. And so the deeper and deeper I got into trying to figure this out, the more into like psychology and philosophy and even like quantum theory and biomechanics and physical therapy, reflexology, the more I'm getting into like massage therapy, thinking about all these things, like what is the connection between the quantum field and the pressure point. So I got really far into it. And then eventually I started to realize basically I'm doing Pilates. I'm doing Pilates. And when I moved back to New York, like August of 2019, I came across a work study program to get my Pilates certification while I worked the front desk. And I had never done reception. And I knew I kind of wanted to like learn that skill because I wanted to learn the skill. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I felt like it was something that I should know. And it's hard. It's really hard. And so I was working the front desk, earning my Pilates certificate, and then just really fell in love with it. Really fell in love with the reformer. And then after having been away from dance, as like, I mean, when I was with Parsons, I was performing and dancing, 8 hours a day. So it's hard to get back to that type of routine if it's not your job. It doesn't make sense. Like, I've got to work. And so it was the first time doing that Pilates on the reformer again that my body felt like it wanted to like jump around and reach and grab and go down and up. And so doing Pilates made me want to dance. And so instead of dancing and feeling like an emotional or musical connection and inspiration, I was feeling a physical desire to move. And it was literally just to experience the biomechanics of movement and to have that experience. It felt awesome. And so I was teaching Pilates. I ended up joining the dance competition. The owner of the dance competition was somebody who judged me when I was doing dance competitions just a couple of years ago. And I'm kidding. It was a long time ago.
just 2 years
Just to
max.
clarify, it was a really long time ago. But he judged me. He did the math. It was like 23 years ago. He judged me in competitions. So he reached out and was like, "Hey, do you want to join us for the judging season?" I was like, "Yeah." So I was teaching Pilates. I ended up getting offered a position to teach contemporary modern at Forest Academy of Ballet in New York City. And so I was teaching contemporary dance to like these really wonderful ballerinas, which I love teaching modern and contemporary to very ballet trained dancers because I love saying things like, "Go back on your heels." Makes me so happy. So I really enjoy that. So it was a real treat. So I was teaching Pilates and I was teaching at Forest Academy of Ballet, and then I would judge on the weekends. And then the pandemic hit. And it was like the week that everything was finally starting to happen where it was like, all right, here's the week, here's the weekend, and then here's this part of the weekend. And it's like, okay, let's figure this out. And so my girlfriend and I came to Massachusetts to hang out for the weekend, and then we quickly found out that it was going to be like a week, and then we heard 15 days. And then we learned that also wasn't necessarily what was going to be happening. And so my dad, the realtor, was like, "Well, I'll find you a spot," because we were on our like daily stroll to just like walk around the neighborhood, And we're like, "It's a cute town. Like, it would be nice to like, just live in a just get a little house, just live a simplistic life, go teach some dance, teach some yoga, teach some Pilates, and just kind of try to influence and be part of a community here." My dad's like, "I'll find you a spot," and like literally that afternoon we were looking at this studio where I'm sitting now.
Wow.
We checked out a few different places, and Nicole and I just kept saying like, Pope's Island is pretty cool. It's pretty cool, and so we went for it, and then things kept getting pushed back. We were thinking, end of the summer, maybe August, things would get picked up, but things kept getting shifted, and now finally, as we get into June, things are starting to kind of like pick up exactly the way we were hoping. So it's been a hell of a ride, but like here we are, and if I do enough Pilates, like I don't know, should be okay.
And so I know you said this fall you're expanding into the dance courses now.
Yeah, we're starting our summer program now. So we've got a few students in several different age categories. We've got like 2 to 5, we've got like 5 to 8 or 6 to 8, a couple 10 to 12, and then a few 13 and over. So it's kind of exciting. People, whether they're just like trying to try a different style of dance or from different instructors for the summer. Other people are coming in because their studios closed during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not the way that we were trying to get students, but it's kind of nice to know that like we were able to start this thing and get going, and be here if there were students who didn't have a studio to go back to in the fall. So it's kind of exciting. It's still kind of heartbreaking. Like at the competition, the owner of the competition keeps talking about how there were like 20,000 studios in America, and like 20% or something like that. I'm not certain on these facts, but it was like something like 20% closed.
Wow.
It's just kind of amazing. So we'll see where we go. But we're building up the studio slowly. We keep trying to figure out, flooring and the mirrors, and one thing gets done, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. Same thing. Everything was closed when COVID started, so we called the flooring and mirror company. We're like, we'd like floors and mirrors. They're like, you can't have them. We're like, okay.
Yeah. What has doing the competitions during the pandemic? What's that been like? Has that been?
That's been really well. There was a few competitions that I did remotely, so I sat on my computer and watched the live stream of it and was able to critique that way. Which certainly there's things that are missed. You know what I mean? The interpersonal connection that you get from stage is not there. But it gave me a good opportunity to focus pretty clearly or pretty directly on like orthopedic wellness inside of dance movement. So whether you're on a video or in real life, you can see if you're leaning a little bit on the inside of the knees or a little bit more out the outside. You can see some of these like structural things. So it was a nice opportunity to be like, I think you should do a little bit more yoga for the flexibility. Think about how you can strengthen your feet more to support your ankles. So it was really cool. And then once the in-person stuff started happening, it was interesting to see how different parts of the country were handling the COVID restrictions. So some places the dancers were allowed to dance with no masks, excuse me, if it was a solo, or just for the time that they were on stage. Other cities we would do, they were calling it block scheduling. So you would do one studio for a couple of hours and then sanitize everything, change it out, go to the next studio. Which was also interesting because, at the end of a long weekend of seeing studios back in like the before 2019, you'd get to the end of the weekend and be like, all right, it's been really nice watching you all weekend. These are kind of my overall thoughts. But when you watch them back to back to back, by the time they finish all of the pieces, all of the dances, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I feel like I've really had an opportunity to say all of the things that I'm kind of thinking. It's hard as an adjudicator because I don't judge, I adjudicate. Yeah, okay.
There's a difference. Words matter.
Yes, words matter. And actually, I heard Scott Fowler say that, so I just have to give credit where credit is due. I heard Scott Fowler say that once when the first time I judged. He's like, well, I don't judge, I adjudicate. I was like, there's a great difference.
Yeah.
And so it was a really cool experience to see how all that stuff was handled and how it was different. But yeah, then there were some places too where even if you were dancing by yourself, you had to keep the mask on the whole time. And so I mean, it's kind of amazing to watch how resilient these kids are.
Yeah.
Just like, I don't care anyways. I'm going to give you fierce eyebrows. I'm gonna like, hey,
yeah.
You're not sacrificing anything. So it was really kind of amazing. It's not something you would ever like hope for, obviously, but it's kind of an amazing thing to have experienced. And it's going to be a long time of reminiscing and thinking back and like, gosh, that was really weird.
So
cool things.
So having been able to experience the closer to what it used to be version and the block scheduling, because I know the competitions over this way, very much the block scheduling, which was interesting. because I'm seeing it from the parent side of, okay, I know my kids have to be here for these few hours, and it's like bust these dances out back to back though.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, what was that like seeing
Well,
that?
I, it's as different as every dancer is, right? Like, I mean, as many dancers as I saw, there were probably that many approaches to handling it. And, but like, in general, I saw kind of two things. Either studios and students taking their sweet time, which, okay, fine. But also, like, there's another studio that has to come in at 2:00. And if it's 2:30 right now, they're not going to make it for 2:00.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's
Literally.
all. Mm-hmm. And we have to be out by Sunday. So, you know, so there was that. And then there was also the studios that like really embraced the challenge of getting changed quickly, handling the backstage stress, and then leaving backstage, coming out, giving fierce eyebrow, and then getting off stage, changing everything, changing their masks to a different mask. I saw this one dance to like Super Mario Brothers, and they put the little mustaches on the mask. It was so
That's cute.
and such a great way too to kind of like, fine, I'm gonna love my mask now. Mm-hmm. It was really cute. So like I saw some creativity there too. It was pretty cool. But yeah, studios would handle it different ways. And for the studios who embrace the challenge, I really think they got a lot out of it because they found out what it's like to do the last dance of a show. And you can't practice doing the last dance of a 2-hour concert until you've been dancing for 2 hours.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's no way to practice that unless you're doing it. And there's no way that you're going to do it unless you have to do it. I'm saying the word you, and that's a gross over exaggeration for anybody. I'm not going to do it unless I have to.
Look, you can put me in there with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks. Circle of friends for support. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I remember actually when I was with Parsons, I was always amazed. My roommate Miguel, we lived together for 10 years. He would do all the dances, including Caught, which has like 250, 300 jumps, depending on how you're feeling that day. And I just didn't understand how he would do that and then do the next dance. He's like, well, one day you have to do it. I was like, and he's like, and that's all. That's all. You get cast, everything, and then you have to do it. And then he went on stage. I'm like, come on, man. And it's true. Like one day you have to do it. And then you figure it out, and it's like, holy smokes, this is really hard. And then it's like, wow, this is really hard. And it's like, wow, this is really hard. It's like, wow, this is hard, but it kind of feels good. Wow, you know what? Hold on, I want it to feel hard again. And it's like there's that excitement too. But like, I don't know. I think there's something to be said about what the kids got to experience from all of this. And gosh, there were some kids too that, I mean, they danced for 2 hours and they were in almost every dance. And then at the end, you know, red-faced, like trying to move arms because of literally lack of oxygen, not just because of the masks, because they ran out. They breathed. They breathed all the time. There was no more time.
Yeah.
And they still finished.
Yeah.
You know, like they still finished. They're not getting paid. Like only their parents and friends and family are clapping. There's only 25% of giving that. And it's like they say, like I remember being told, you know, you got to do this for the judges. They're not doing it for They're not doing it for the judges. They really don't care like what I have to say. Like I get to give my opinion of 2 minutes of their life during 2 minutes of my life. And who knows? Like maybe I just ate. Maybe I'm about to eat. You know what I mean? Like I try to stay consistent, of course. But I'm saying like these kids aren't doing it for the judges. They're not.
Yeah.
They're just not. They're doing it for themselves. But somehow they're able to blame other people for why they're able to push themselves so well. It's like, oh, well, the judges. Oh, well, my teacher. Oh, well, my parents. Oh, well, my grandma's here today. Like, you know, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my friend, my cousin, my dog is in the audience today. Like, you know, it might be the only time they see me. Like, oh, yeah. Well, damn. All right. And you get into the professional world, and a lot of times and not all the time certainly, but a lot of times you see kind of the opposite. It's just kind of like, play the music faster. Get it done. Let's get it done.
Mhm. Yeah.
This audience only paid $50 for these tickets. No, to be clear, that's never a conversation that was had. But I mean, I think there's a difference where when it becomes your job, when it becomes work, and you're going to work and you work from 8 to 10 p.m. You know what I mean, as opposed to like the competition that weekend.
Yeah.
You're getting up at 5:30 in the morning because you perform at 10:30 that night. You're gonna spend the whole weekend figuring out what you're gonna eat.
Yes.
Well, I saw Panera. I think there's a Panera. Do you guys want to do that or Buffalo Wild Wings?
Like, it's I know because for me it is always complicated to separate teacher me from mom, like, and they're aware. This is why, as I've discussed on here before, they don't like me helping because I am very much like, and now I'm teaching, so this is what needs to happen. But to see that even though they were exhausted, and like, of course they're complaining and they're like, oh my God, we have to just keep doing them back to back. But they did it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know whether it's because I watch too many of these types of movies or if it's actually happening, but somehow I always hear in the background, like, come on, team, we can do it, just believe. I'm like, did they really do that? Or did I just watch Stick too many times? Like,
I think they're doing it. I think it's a bit of both. I think they're both happening.
Yeah, we've been watching Make It or Break It.
Like, come on, guys, we can do this. Come on, like, just one more time.
Yeah.
It's like,
does that part end? Because that's what I'm wondering. It's like, so we're doing these dance competitions, and as I'm watching all these students, it's the perfect microcosm of what actually happens in real life. You put a lot of effort into about 3 minutes, hoping that 3 strangers have a decent opinion about what you were able to present.
Yeah.
Hope the universe is on my side today. And then you put on your costume and you like get ready however you want to like feel your best. And then there's like backup costumes that like support the costume you're gonna wear. Like, I'm gonna wear this pant leg here. Yeah. And you know what I mean? Like, there's all of this stuff going into building this persona. It's kind of the perfect microcosm, I think, of how when I look at like the world as performative self. Actually, that is kind of what my thesis ended up being about, is like how you present yourself, whether you're on stage or in reality or on social media. Like, what are these different performance modalities that are available, and how does it influence what you're actually doing? Like, when you're performing onto your phone, there's so much like small, narrow, concise interaction. If I think about Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen and like KJ Holmes and like thinking about all that organic movement, if we're constantly moving in and out of like very narrow things, like in and out of the screens, and with this, like, I mean, what that does to your heart and all of your organs, you know. And then I'm watching the competition dances, a lot of which are like very hard hitting, which again, thinking about if that's like shaking up your emotions, like how often are we celebrating who was like the most upset that day? And is that really what we want to celebrate? I mean, listen, I'm a contemporary modern dancer. Like, I love the Whitney Houston coming out, reach, bun, like long dress, lyrical. I tried to resist it. I tried to say that that wasn't my thing. I love it. I love watching it. Now I'm thinking about all that stuff, all those reaches, and now I'm lost my thought.
Reach and bring it in.
About, like, what does that actually do? Because then I watch some of the more contemporary pieces, and I see a lot of emotions being done and performed, a lot of performative emotions. And I do kind of wonder, though, how often are we celebrating like the most dramatic or the most sad looking or the most like angry looking dances? And I mean, I've seen some intense dances, people angry, and I'm like, that was awesome, all the way up. Awesome. But then I get myself, it's like, hold on. Like, kind of consistently throughout, like, what kind of dances are being celebrated, what it does to the organic emotional wellness, considering like Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen and like how that type of correlation exists. There's some stuff going on. And then we're celebrating like maybe the dancer who seemed the most emotionally distraught.
Mm.
And so,
Yeah.
when you tell a 15, 16-year-old person over and over again, if you're sad enough, you will win. What are we really saying?
Yeah.
What are we really doing? Because at some point, they're going to take that emotional sadness performance and they're going to get what they want at Applebee's. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then beyond. So like I do kind of like I had an opportunity to kind of like look at that. So that was like the Holland's like inner monologue that was going on, well, inner dialogue. Well, let's it was a whole grad sem in there. I got a lot of sticky notes written down with different opinions that need to argue it out. But there's a lot that was happening that I was able to notice. That was kind of cool. So then that, and then after being working in physical therapy and doing all the Pilates stuff, looking at the orthopedic structure of dancers really fascinated me. For instance, I'm noticing there tends to be, especially in like really contemporary dances, I'm going to try to do it. I don't know if I can do it as cool as they do, but there's this really wide stance with this kind of like inward leaning knee.
Yeah.
Noticing that it's actually creating like an inward like bow for knees, and it's also dropping like the arches of people's feet. I noticed a couple of studios all had the same exact knee and foot structure.
Mm.
I mean, let's be clear though, these studios performed outstandingly,
Yeah, that's a word.
even more outstandingly than you could imagine.
That might not have been a
That's
word, but we'll
right.
take it.
Yes.
We can edit this.
Nah.
Nah.
That's right. Right. Here's that sign that reminds me. All uncensored. Okay.
Yes.
E1. Don't say that word.
This is fine.
Obviously, even more obviously, so I'm looking at that kind of like stuff, like the falling arches in foot structure, and just looking at too how the first performance I actually did at Holland's was a piece about how your body holds your history, like your bones hold your experience, and then like we were just talking about, your organs hold your emotions. And so I'm watching these dancers, like 15, 16, 17 years old, seeing bone structures all kind of indicating something. And that's as far as I've gotten. There is no more chapters to that. I've gotten as far as the observation, but it's just something really interesting to me to see how what you do really influences like your orthopedic structure. It's kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
Or seems to. I mean, that's bold speculation based on like 9 dance competitions, but
Yeah.
it's kind of fascinating stuff.
Yeah. It makes me think. I wonder. How do we incorporate more Pilates work into more pedagogical practices, right? Because I think, especially in K through 12 education, and more so thinking about like my my own students. So I'm at a very comprehensive program, so not a performing arts school. And a lot of my students come to me very, very green, but with a strong passion to dance. Some of them, and it's sometimes, and I think we've talked about it on this show too, where you get into this like, and we've all probably as teachers have experienced, especially teaching people for an extended period of time, that there's so much that you want to give them, but so little time to give it. And so not that you want to. Not that you want to rush technical development, but sometimes that happens, right? Like sometimes, without us wanting it to happen, it just, we move forward, right? And, it just seems like that practice would be really a good way for like on their own, just kind of as you said, Steve, how you found that a lot of the Pilates practices helped you to, really warm up your body and really get into a place to be ready to dance. That a lot of that discovery could happen for young people, if they had more. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. In my undergrad, Pilates was not a thing that we might have done a little. We might have touched on it. I won't say that we didn't do it, but it definitely wasn't in a meaningful way, I would say.
Pilates.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. Here's the thing. All right, and then going on to
Can I put that on my resume? I'm gonna put that on my resume. But jot that down.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and I know that I'm completely biased as a Pilates instructor and as a Pilates studio owner. I completely get it, but also at the same time, I did this because I believe that it really should be the basic foundation of our physical education system everywhere, because it works for bodies. It works for bodies. Like it works. And we're gonna spend most of our life in these bodies. Might as well figure out how they work a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. But I think it really speaks to like I was kind of saying, like you were just saying too, about kind of causing the body to want to dance. Because I think too, I see so much replication of movement. When I first learned what organic movement was, I thought it was you must wiggle like this, and it should be slow and maybe a flexed foot, and then maybe it reverses. And so like I thought that's what organic movement was. Then I studied what organic movement was. It was like locate your spleen. I'm like, wait, what? Move it, agitate it to locate an emotion. I'm like, hold on. Like this? Not like that, not like that. But so I'm seeing a lot of replication of this stuff. And so even seeing how people are training dance steps by doing those dance steps, it makes me realize or think, my opinion is that we often put our goal right on like target too much. Like we put our goal right there, but if we put our attention, if we have the goal and then put our attention slightly to the periphery of it, it seems a little bit more attainable. If I'm working on like shoulder flexibility and I think about building strength into pressing my hand down, my shoulder takes care of itself. If I pay some attention to my hand and leave it alone, I feel like I always say that it's like training a dog or like dealing with like little kids. Like you can't be too stern, but you have to insist. Like, okay, you're gonna go down, shoulder. And then when it starts to kind of like get upset, you're but you can't get mad and directly deal with it, because if you do, then it's agitated, then it gets injured. Then it's a whole different thing. But if you can kind of like move the goal, like, okay, well, I'm not even gonna deal with you, shoulder. I'm just gonna move past him. I'm gonna hang out with elbow over here. There seems to be a way that the body kind of fixes itself because it has a little bit of like space to do so. And so I'm looking at the way that people are approaching all of these different movements as replications of things that have been seen, as opposed to something, or instead of replicating the experience that causes that thing to happen in the first place. If I'm trying to locate a human experience inside of dance or inside of a dance, somewhere there has to be some sort of reference to human existence and human, human nature is not quite the right word, but generic, maybe even generic human experience, like walking or like being dizzy, like maybe some generic human experiences that need to be kind of referenced inside of that. But I think if we're trying to do a pirouette because we want to perfect the pirouette, we're missing that human experience, and then we're missing a whole section of audience too that's not able to get it. Sorry, my mind went off on like a whole bunch of
No. That made sense. They are 100% just now showing up under my window. I don't know, cutting grass. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't understand.
Motorcycles, there's a bridge right here. We're on an island, and there's a bridge that opens up. It opens up like this to let the boats go through. We're in Bedford, Massachusetts. It's the whaling capital of the world. Well, it was. And like right up the street is where Moby Dick was, like the boat that was in Moby Dick was made, something like that. But this bridge opens up, and all these motorcycles out there like revving their engines.
It's like the random sounds, and it's like, what is happening? But I think I really like that idea of, instead of looking directly at the thing, just slightly askew, and that giving it space to resolve itself. And to both of your points, that is a valuable way of framing it mentally for young people, because the sooner you can kind of start grasping that and start applying it, the easier, I would think, or I believe from what I've seen, the easier it is for them to continue working like that as they go on and reducing some of the injuries because I understand how the body works and
Mm-hmm.
oh okay, well I know that by doing this strengthens this supports this, so I can take that knowledge and as I continue my career I'm able to extend that career because I know how to pay attention to my body. And I think maybe partially an answer to Daryl's question is that could probably be a very useful thing to teach people going into the field. Um, somewhere that needs to start being taught. Like
Mm-hmm.
someone needs to start implementing this. Because we recently had this conversation, even if they're not in a program specifically for education, somebody out there is still going to end up teaching. And that would be very beneficial
Mm-hmm.
to have that understanding before you start teaching somebody. So you can impart that knowledge to them, regardless of what titles and degrees you may hold.
Mm-hmm.
It's just useful
Because I think,
information.
so like, I mean, I have my master's degree, I have my bachelor's degree, I have world performing experience, I've taught at universities and colleges. You know what? That 7-year-old still doesn't care if I can't show that I can do a split.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So like, the best thing that's ever happened to me and the worst thing that's ever happened to me, the best thing I've done, the worst thing I've done, it really doesn't matter. Like if I can like get this youngster to like be like, you know what? I'm gonna work on my foot strength. Not I'm gonna do a pointed foot perfectly. Just I'm gonna enjoy wiggling my toes. Like what actually is my role as a judge, as a teacher, as a studio owner, as a participant, as a student? Like what actually is my role? Like if I'm sitting here judging a 12-year-old solo, is it really like necessary for me to impart that I've done things? And if you're going to do the things that I've done, you must give more face? Or like, is there an opportunity there to kind of think and try to figure out what's the goal of this person with this dance? And what's the goal like of the studio? Like, where are we heading here? Because if it's just to enjoy being on stage and get out all those tap sounds or like go for that double, even though it's not going to happen, but you're going to get on stage and you're going to go for the double, that's harder than being really good at performing these tricks and performing the tricks. Like if I'm not good at doing a double pirouette, that's harder than to do a double pirouette than it is for somebody who's really good. And I don't know quite how to articulate this point, but I started thinking that because I kept finding myself like really being inspired by the dancers who had less technical ability, but were clearly content with their efforts. Like it's like, wow, that's cool to see. And that's a human connection that like I'm actually moved by. So like this sloppy jazz dance that everybody else wants to make, everybody else, gross overstatement, that everybody else in the world, everybody doesn't like, except for me. You know, it's kind of like, wait, there's like kind of an opportunity to see something special here that you're certainly never going to see on Broadway or in London or in Germany. Like you're not going to see that type of raw, like, I think I can and I'm going to. And I think that's awesome. I really do. I think that type of thoughtful, cognitive, like, performance is pretty cool. You know, for better or worse, I know that that comes and goes with its pros and cons for a dance competition. But also at the same time, like, what are we doing? What are we doing as a judge or as a participant? What's actually our point? If I'm going to see these kids for a minute and a half of their entire life, what am I going to say? Like I feel like so many times I've heard the question like, okay, if you could be on TV for 15 seconds, you know, what would you say? It's like, well, if I had a minute and a half to talk to a child who wants to join this career path, what would I say? Like, that's a hard question, and I keep changing my mind, or maybe not changing my mind, but keep trying to refine my answer. You know, we did the rough estimate. There was something like 5,000 dances that we saw this season, and I hope that next season I'll be a little bit better at articulating what I kind of mean. I mean, I got really good at saying emphasize your elbow. So that, you know, for any dancer out there, emphasize the bend of your elbow just a little bit more. Nobody wants to bend their arm all the way for some reason. So that I'm clear on. And that I want to get better at trying to recognize what is the opportunity for contribution in this moment, because it's not going to be to like tout my resume or like tell this child that they're not going to make it on Broadway. It's like, I don't know. I don't even know what's going to be on Broadway then. Like, how do I know? I don't know. So, I don't know. There's something there. Yeah. But that's what I got to was orthopedic wellness and something about what really is the goal and what really is the role, not the goal, but the role of an adjudicator or of a studio teacher or owner. I got as far as the question.
It's all right.
Yeah.
I think it counts.
Does that count?
It does. It definitely does. All right, Steve, thank you so much for joining us today.
This is so fun. Thank you.
Awesome.
Right.
All right, before we let you go, could you please share with the people where they can follow you, get more information, stay abreast of the things that you are doing?
Yes. The website for our dance studio is, or dance yoga Pilates studio, I should say, is www.thestudioonpopesisland.com. Our Instagram tag is @the_studio_on_Pope's_Island. And I also have an account for more Pilates-oriented stuff called @New Bedford Pilates. New Bedford's the town that we're in. So yeah, studioonpopesisland.com. If you have any questions or I can help or talk more or expand upon anything, info@thestudioonpopesisland.com. And I'll be happy to get back. This is a real pleasure.
It was. I'm so mad at these people outside my window. Y'all don't understand. I'm like,
you know what?
Y'all could have waited.
I went to Alaska for a performance once, and it was when there's literally 23 and a half hours of daylight, yet they still started doing the lawn at 7 a.m. Literally, guys, you have all day.
All the day.
All
is available. All the day. Well, again, we thank you, and we thank you all for joining us here yet again at Dance Talk Realness. If you have any questions, comments, observations, any follow-up things that you want us to talk with Steve about, be sure to drop us a line and we will get on that. Be sure to like, comment, follow, subscribe across all the places where you can find us, and we look forward to bringing you some fresh new content next week. We'll see you then. Bye.